Welcome, welcome.
Okay, participants.
Hello.
Happy
Full
Friday.
house.
Hello.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Sid City Social Club for Friday, December 18th. We're glad you're here. So also, Skylanes is out now in select theaters and also available on demand. You can rent it on Amazon, Vudu, Fandango, and DirecTV, and probably some other outlets that I'm not sure, I don't know about yet. So just FYI, your weekend plans are set. And with that, I'll throw it to Sid.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you very much for your get well soon, whatever it was, video montage, rogues gallery. It was very, very funny. And it started off with this, and it was very touching and heartfelt. And it devolved into a kind of group of kindergarten children just doing this, which was hilarious. I thought it was really funny. It was terrific. Thank you.
All right, we have a birthday to celebrate. Young Ariel.
Young Ariel.
52 years. Wait, 52 years.
Dude, that's ancient.
Yeah, for this crowd, I think.
Younger than me.
That is old. Hey, can you all say hello to Ariel? I mean, I'm.
Birthday, sweetie.
Thank you, honey. Zadi.
Ariel. I mute up when this calms down.
Okay.
Good luck.
Birthday.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, that's really cool.
Mel, I'm not sure if you have those pictures that I
You.
sent. There's a picture of me and Terry with our Starfleet uniforms back when the thing in Las Vegas still existed, the experience. If you were ever familiar with that.
Yeah.
Basically, it was the two of us in our uniforms, and mine was about 20 pounds ago. Voyager late DS9 style. A nice little Trekkie looking picture. And the thing was about the experience when we lived in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
We were part of a Star Trek club there, and we would celebrate our anniversary, our club's anniversary in Vegas, and we would wear our uniforms, whoever had one. And we needed to wear these stickers on our shoulders so we didn't get confused with the talent. Because sometimes some of us would get into role playing with the talent there because they were good, especially that. I mean, I'll tell you, the Ferengi that I tried to, I was trying to dig as deep as I could with Star Trek lore. This guy knew his stuff. I threw out non-canonical Betazoid stuff, and he seemed to know it. So I was very impressed.
That is super impressive. I don't know that stuff. I always went to conventions like in fear that someone would actually expect me to know, but people eventually forgave the fact that I'm totally dumb about Star Trek.
Well, and the Klingon knew one of these drinking songs, these war songs from one of the episodes of DS9 before they went off to battle. It was a Dominion War episode. I won't even remember which one. So there was that. Anyway, the picture one, if you could, Mel. I really haven't had any artistic pandemic project. So what kind of crawled into my head and has been off and on for years was just build a PC. Some friends started talking about this game called Space Engineers, which is basically Minecraft in space.
Wow.
Between that and trying to finish Fallout 4, because I like RPGs, I just headed over to Micro Center on Cyber Monday, the Monday after Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, and just found, had a list of parts in my head and put together a PC.
That is amazing. It really is. I can see. I thought I could see a couple of little SSD drives there.
Well, yeah. So basically, yeah, I got a. Forgive me in advance for those who aren't technically inclined with this. Sid and I may geek out for a moment. It's basically a micro ATX case, which is still huge for my taste. And yeah, just got the usual parts. I already had one SSD. I bought an identical one later on after the fact and put them in a RAID format. So I just expanded my space. And I guess I watched enough YouTube videos on cables because I'm very particular with certain techie things. So this is the first time I've ever done cables this well. So I kind of look at this and I kind of go,
work of art. It's like
not bad.
Gorgeous.
This is actually the first time I've ever put together anything close to this in 20 plus years.
Wow.
since the 90s. And so this, I did turn it into a Hackintosh. That is, for those who don't know, it's a PC it's modified to run Mac OS. Keep in mind, I'm mostly Apple oriented. I'm in the Apple cult mostly, but technically I'm platform agnostic. So there's my Hackintosh.
Beautiful. A work of art, sir. Really lovely.
Just flapping together parts.
It looks like the inside of one of those sports cars that you see they show off when they just show the outside of the car. They show the inside of the car.
Oh, good. I think that was kind of my semi-conscious intent. I'm not into all the fancy lights. I may put something subtle down the road, but I just went with the darker, simple theme.
Yeah.
I'm just too old for that stuff. I just don't want all the blinged out nonsense. I
love that you've done that, Ariel. That's really, really cool. I think that's actually very artistic.
Thank you. I mean, that's the closest I've come to any kind of project, because it's been mostly just work and recovering from work, being with Terry, figuring out this game now. So
it's also your birthday. Let's not forget.
Drink up. There we go. Really I'm a little homesick today. Can you tell? The background, the thing, and so.
Of course.
So basically, I mean, the vacation will basically be us sitting here, catching up on The Expanse,
and playing Fallout.
Playing Fallout 4 and the Space Engineers. I have Destiny 2. I think in one of the stores there I got for free. I might try that out. You kind of put that idea in my head a while ago.
It's good fun. It's not really it's RPG, but it's not really RPG. It's kind of a mashup between first person and with RPG themes, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not. I tend to get. It's an age thing. I somehow, forgive me. I know you play a first person shooter, but I tend to feel weird about FPS, even though Fallout has that taste of it.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it, but I'm the first.
Okay, you got me. You sold me, because the last one I was ever really decent at was Call of Duty 4.
Yeah.
So I was like, what, 2004?
Oh God, yeah. We were playing Battlefield and Call of Duty and all of those things back then. And I was always terrible. I mean, there was always these kids bouncing off the walls and shooting me in the face, and I was pretty relaxed about it. No, it's a perfect antidote to work, and a perfect preparation for going back to work eventually. How long have you got off? You got the whole of up until the new year, or are they yanking you back?
No, I have to work the new year, but I go back on the 28th. So I made a choice. I usually haven't taken my birthday off in some time, so I said, damn it, I'm taking it off because I'm having Christmas off for sure. So it just took the whole package for now.
Good. I mean, it's a bummer that many people, especially in the States and in the UK, can't get to see their family this Christmas. But I was talking about it with my wife the other day, and we figured, it's just one Christmas, you know. I mean, or one Thanksgiving, and it is a bummer, but and I understand if there's in situations where you've got elderly people or ill people who you may not see again. That's a whole different matter. But if it's just your regular Christmas routine that you're just skipping 1 year, then I'm prepared to do it.
And I do miss New England Christmases, and I miss New England Thanksgivings, even the snow sometimes. I'll say that.
Beautiful.
But for us, the holidays are pretty sedate. It's just it's been me and Terry the last several years. I mean, she's got cousins an hour away, but we can't see them.
Right.
We give each other a few gifts, and what we've done in the last 5 years, which is not going to happen, of course, this year, is we open our gifts and then go see a Star Wars movie. Oh, yeah. So I guess we're going to switch it over and watch Wonder Woman on HBO. So
okay, that's great.
Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Okay, great. I think as long as you get to unwind. I mean, as long as you totally forget about everything for a bit, and
I will.
A little bit of fun, and especially on your birthday. What are you going to do? Is it today?
It is today. 5:55 a.m. San Juan time on December 18. I was supposed to be born on Christmas Eve, apparently, so I just showed up a little early so I can get my presents. I ran some errands. Terry ran some errands. I came home.
Gifts.
And I have to open my gifts before we watch The Mandalorian and do our chat with friends tonight. So that'll
is it
happen too.
Mandalorian season 2?
Yes, yes. And apparently it's the last episode before next year. So then there's The Expanse. So we're good.
Okay.
I still have a lot to catch up on with shows.
I haven't seen Breaking Bad. That's how bad I am.
You haven't seen Breaking Bad? That's a good show. I just stumbled onto that once upon a time. And I binged on The Wire before we moved down here. And maybe, in your honor, maybe I will binge watch the little part of Game of Thrones that you were on, because I didn't think I'd ever go back to Game of Thrones.
I don't know, because I stopped watching it when I arrived.
But I identify with House Martell, so I got to watch it.
Okay.
So I was excited, like, oh my God, that's Sid on the Game of. I was like, Terry, Sid's on Game of Thrones. Sid's on Game of Thrones. That was good.
I was excited too.
I haven't read the books, but seeing as an analogy, Dorne is kind of the analogy of, I guess, just amalgam of Mediterranean countries. I kind of gravitated toward that. Like, oh, it must be kind of like Spain meets North Africa. Yeah, that's kind of
basically
my people.
Some world in the middle of all of that, precisely, with the most expensive costumes the show ever made.
Oh,
well, Ariel,
adding again.
Lovely to talk to you again, and
thank you.
I'd like to say anytime. So
thank you, Sid.
Absolutely, my friend.
Next, we're going to hear from Emma.
Well, I believe you have a presentation.
I do, yeah. Many months ago, you asked me to come back and talk about archaeology, so I put together a thing.
I'm very excited.
Hopefully it's interesting and hopefully it's funny. I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, Emma, it'll be divine, I betcha.
Thank you. Okay, so if you don't know me, I better just introduce myself. I'm the bipolar gothy one with an archaeology degree and too many pairs of scissors. This talk is going to be just a very brief, very biased history of ancient religions, because that's my field. So to start off, I'm just going to sort of skim over the ideologies of these different religions. Starting off with Egypt. Egypt's religion is all about the balance between order and chaos, and about fertility. And to illustrate that, I've put in this picture from the tomb of Nebumun. This is showing him and his family on a fishing and fowling sort of hunting trip. And you can see from just the way the art depicts the people and foliage and everything's very ordered and structured, and you've got a very flat baseline. So that's how they show that order and chaos thing. And of course we have the fertility angle, which is not only in the fact that his whole family is there and you have the beautiful lush Nile foliage, but also I'm going to try and make this family friendly. You can see he's holding a throwing stick, which in Egyptian, the word for throwing stick is the same as the word for to impregnate. Moving on to Greece and Rome, I'm kind of going to be focusing on them a bit more. Greece's ideology is all about charis, which roughly translates to reciprocity. It's also where we get the modern word charity. And the other main thing that they sort of built everything around is moderation and balance, not just in eating and drinking, it's also in exercise and in religion. They had a notion of being over religious. And then finally, we go to Rome. Roman religion is pretty similar to Greek religion in a lot of ways, but the ideologies are very different. Rome, the focus is more on the family and this sort of patriarchal family structure, on tradition, and on the state. Insert joke about Cardassians here. So how did ancient people go about worshipping? Well, as we talked about, it's a lot about building up a relationship with your gods. And the way you do that is through offerings. So either permanent offerings that we call votives, libations, which are offerings of liquids, events and festivals and prayer and that sort of thing, and sacrifices. The most important of those is sacrifices, because not only are they a great way to give to your god, but they're also a great way to pull the community together. Altars in ancient Greece and Rome were always outside because they were used to burn up the entrails and the bones of animals, which were what was given to the gods. The rest of the animal would be eaten by the community. So they're a really good way for the whole community to come together. For a lot of poor people, that would be the only time they get to eat meat. Especially in Roman religion, you would often make sacrifices either to the dead emperor, to the current emperor's genius, a bit like his guardian angel, effectively, or on to another deity on his behalf. So it's all about sort of maintaining that order. Before we move on, I just want to draw your attention to my favorite statue of all time, which is just under votive offerings. This guy is the Delphi Charioteer. I love him. He's beautiful. He would have been part of a full team with a chariot and a full team of horses, and he was dedicated after that team won a race at Delphi. We know the name of the guy who owned the horses. We don't know the name of this guy. He may have even been a slave, but he's beautiful, and he's the only bit that survives. The horses have all gone, so there's a certain irony in that, which I quite like. So mystery cults. Anybody who's seen my longer talks that I've done for the Discord crowd will know I love mystery cults. So what's a mystery cult? Well, they're kind of extracurricular activities for religion. So you still have your main religion, and then you would have a secondary, various secondary religions that you could join. They're called mysteries because you're not supposed to know anything about them unless you've been initiated into that order. Most of what we know about mystery cults either comes from physical stuff, like the examples we have here, or from things that rumors, which are often completely wrong and kind of hilarious, or things that people have said when they really, really shouldn't have. So a lot of people got in a lot of trouble within their orders for telling the secrets. So I've got two cults represented here. There's a whole load of them, but these are two Roman ones. The one on the left-hand side is the Mithras cult. Mithras is this fascinating, almost monotheistic deity from the Near East, kind of like the Masons, in that they have these levels of initiation, and then they all have like weird cryptic names, and all of the Mithraea, his temples, are supposed to represent being underground. So in this case, in the one on the bottom there, that is a Mithraeum from Ostia Antiqa, which is the Roman, the port town for Rome. And this Mithraeum, to simulate a cave, they've actually built this Mithraeum in the hypercore system, so the central heating system, for a bath. So this is all under the baths, and it's really fun. You sort of duck into it to get in, and then you have a statue in this stream of light. It's very dramatic. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I highly recommend looking that up if you're ever around Rome. And the other two images on the right-hand side are from a different cult. These are from the cult of Magna Mater, or Cybele. I just wanted to draw attention to them, to this cult, because there's a really interesting sort of gender ambiguous element to them that I think is really interesting. So the top image is of a priest of Siddig called a Galli. They're really interesting. In Latin, they're referred to with male pronouns. In Greek, they're referred to with female pronouns. They wore very elaborate feminine robes dyed with saffron, and supposedly, we don't know whether this is true or just symbolic, they castrated themselves based on another bit of mythology, but they have this sort of weird, almost third gender aspect to them, which is quite interesting. Monotheism, which is really weird if you're a polytheist. The majority of ancient religions were polytheistic, so they had more than one god, but there's lots of examples of smaller and some quite large religions that have more than have only one. The earliest of those is Artanism, which was a cult started up by Tutankhamun's dad. So the guy that you can see under Artanism is Akhenaten. He was mad as a box of frogs. He decided that he was going to completely axe the existing religion, move the entire capital city, and change all the art style. It only lasted throughout his reign, and then when Tutankhamun was installed after his death, it all moved back. But I just wanted to quickly put this bit in there. because it's a great illustration of how Egyptian art can look really, really different. You've got
You're
a
right.
very, very different art style. The other big, very ancient monotheistic religion is, of course, Judaism. So I've got to be honest, I don't know a huge amount about how the Jews were treated in Greece. I don't think there was a particularly big diaspora in the classical period. In Rome, there's this sort of strained tolerance and respect for the Jews 99% of the time. We'll get to the other 1% in a minute. Because Judaism allows for sacrifices and libations, particularly in the ancient version. I'm not sure that many Jews are going around sacrificing animals these days, but this was 2,000 years ago. They would make sacrifices on behalf of the emperor to their god. So they could still prove their loyalty to the state. The Roman state was relatively okay with them 90% of the time, although they thought that they were really weird and superstitious, and at points treated them atrociously badly, leading to a series of revolts. And this is what the image under Judaism is from. This is from the Arch of Titus in Rome, which commemorates, unfortunately, the Jewish wars and the sack of Jerusalem. So you can see these soldiers here carrying menorahs and things. This was when they stripped everything of value from the temple at Jerusalem, which is really miserable. Bloody Romans. And the last thing in monotheism that I wanted to briefly touch on is the more monotheistic mystery cults. We've already talked a little bit about Mithras, and he's a little bit monotheistic. Here we're going to talk about the Roman Isis cult. Now, Isis is an Egyptian deity, but the Roman version of her is kind of different to the Egyptian one. Most of what we know about the Isis cult comes from a book by Apuleius called The Golden Ass. It's about a man who gets turned into a donkey, and it's 80% just a funny, farcical romp. And then right at the end, this donkey wanders into an Isis cult and has a revelation from Isis. And this seems to be pretty much word for word what the Isis cult believed. It's almost like the Christian idea of the Trinity. Isis seems to be sort of an overarching deity, and then everybody else is an aspect of her. So last slide, because I kind of have to talk about it. Oops, Christianity is happening, and our religion reflects our patriotism. So as I've talked about, the Roman state religion was entirely about the state. Not only were you regularly making sacrifices and things on behalf of the emperor to look after the emperor, you would also there was also a secondary state religion, which was literally called the imperial cult, and they worshipped dead emperors, and the dead emperors were often made into gods. Now, that's all well and good for 99% of ancient religions. Unfortunately, for Christians, early Christianity does not practice sacrifices. They do not practice giving physical offerings in any way. So the Roman state was incredibly suspicious of Christianity purely because of that. So there are one or two periods where there are full-on persecutions of Christians, but for most of the first 200 years of Christianity's existence, it was kind of more of a, well, we can't prove that these guys are loyal to the state. They're a bit dodgy. We're going to throw them to the lions, effectively. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing to throw Christians to the lions. I just think that sometimes the level that we talk about Christian persecution kind of erases all of the other poor, unfortunate criminals or people from other religions who were slaughtered in the same way. This is, of course, up until Constantine, who decided to make Christianity the main religion and then persecute all the pagans. So swings and roundabouts, everybody gets a persecution.
Funny old guy.
And that's it. Any questions?
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really
I
cool.
apologise that I got a bit rambly there.
I really love the
great.
fact that you finally gave me an insight into into Artanism and how, even though it was very brief and Akhenaten came to a fairly dicey end, I imagine.
Yeah, we don't know a huge amount about what happened to him or what his death was, because he was kind of completely stripped from all of the records and things.
Yeah,
He's just referred to
very
as
good.
the heretic, which sounds really cool.
You can be pretty certain that he met a sticky end.
Yeah.
The moment he decided to change the entire culture overnight in Egypt.
Yeah.
The elders were up in arms, and not to mention the priesthood and all the people who made a living from the way that things were.
Exactly.
But it was interesting to see a different kind of art, which I had been looking for. And it was a beautiful kind of art, actually, during the Akhenaten.
It's stunning. I love the Amarna period. A lot of the foliage and the birds and things that they depict in there are a lot more naturalistic than the stuff that you'll see
3D
from
as
before
well,
that.
in relief.
Mm.
So you can actually see that they've got depth, whereas the others are sort of superficial on purpose.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Sorry, I'm hogging question time. If anybody,
No, it's all right.
Really, really interesting.
I have a question which I think you might have answered before at one of the TED Talks, but the Egyptian religion, why doesn't it change, and why doesn't their society change for such a long time? Is it because the religion?
It does change subtly. I mean, I suppose it's a bit like saying, well, why hasn't Christianity changed that much for 2,000 years? It does change subtly, but to be completely honest, we don't know a huge amount about it. A lot of the texts that we have that are contemporary are kind of vague about what exactly the day-to-day religious practice would look like. We know what priests wore, we know some of the hymns and things that they sang, or at least we know the words to them, we don't necessarily know the tunes. But in terms of, say, what exactly a ritual offering to, say, Ra or Horus or whoever would look like, we don't really know. We know that there were subtle changes in the different periods, so Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and after that. But beyond that, there isn't a huge change, and that's purely because of the level of structure that religion had, the way that their education system worked, and because of that ideology of order versus chaos, the desire to keep that religion going because that was order, if that makes a lick of sense.
That does make sense. So it's kind of what the religion's purpose is to keep it stable and not be changing.
Yeah. It's to keep it stable and to keep sort of the whole culture stable, because of course the pharaoh is also a god, so it's a bit of a self-fulfilling thing.
So the point of the Roman religion then is to
basically the same. It's
Is that the point of religion all the way through then? That's always the point, to keep things the same?
Kind of, at least with organized religions. This is part of the reason that some of the mystery cults were frowned upon and persecuted, because Christianity was not the only religion that was persecuted in Rome. It's because these other religions either are just too weird, they're too weird and wacky and everyone's a bit suspicious, or because they have their own internal structures. So say with the case of Christianity, you have cardinals and bishops and all of that, and that was considered a threat, because that's sort of a secondary thing that's not the state, and they could be telling people all sorts of things and we don't know, because they're all off doing that in a cupboard somewhere because it's illegal.
Question.
Yep.
Do archaeologists ever attribute modern song tunes to the hymns and just sing them to, like, I don't know, Sweet Caroline or whatever?
Absolutely, yes. So I mean,
it's good to see consistency throughout the disciplines.
Yep, we're massive nerds, and anybody likes a laugh. Some of the Greek ones, we have some idea of what the tunes were, or at least we have a better idea of how the instruments and things worked. But for the Egyptians, we don't really know. So sometimes just for a laugh, people will sing it with nonsense. I mean, I don't read Egyptian because I don't know if you've ever seen a hieroglyphic grammar book, but they stack about this high off the floor. Yeah, that wasn't my specialty. Thank God, because I'm terrible.
How much of Christmas traditions come from pagan celebrations, and which parts?
Christmas is one of the ones that does copy more from ancient religions than some of the others. There are people who will spread memes all year round going, Easter is stolen from such and such, and this is stolen from such and such, and that's a lot less true. So Christmas borrows a lot. It borrows the date from the Saturnalia, which is a Roman tradition, and it borrows a lot of the symbolism and folk traditions from Norse Yule. So things like the Yule log, bringing in bits of foliage, that's all very pagan. I think we honestly don't know that much about the historical Jesus, other than he was born somewhere around February, I believe, and he threw a hissy fit in a bank once. That's basically all we know definitely happens. The hissy fit in a bank is throwing people out, the moneylenders out of the temple. Obviously, a lot of the stories around Jesus Christ himself, relatively Christianity specific. Yeah, a lot of the traditions come from Teutonic and Celtic stuff.
There's a good reason. There's a good reason for that, though, isn't there, Rose? And you too, Emma, in the sense that, I mean, the Romans were really efficient colonizers.
Yeah.
Brutal but efficient. And one of the smart ways to colonize a new culture was to adapt their standing culture that you found there.
Exactly.
So they would always borrow bits and pieces and use names and ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, to build on what Sid was saying about sort of Roman colonization and sort of assimilation, I suppose. So basically, imagine the Romans as the Borg stroke with Cardassians. That's basically them. It's all about the state and assimilation. So that's part of the reason that we think of Roman mythology as basically the same as Greek mythology, because they basically just tacked on bits of other bits of religion. So a lot of people will talk about, say, Jupiter being the Latin name for Zeus. They are technically different deities because they're sort of a mishmash between Latin, Etruscan and Greek sort of mushed together. And then as the empire spreads, you get sort of Artemis of Ephesus, who was a completely separate deity being sort of absorbed into Artemis. You have things like Sulis in Bath in England being sort of morphed into Minerva and becoming Sulis Minerva. And Greek religion has a lot of sort of aspects which are kind of like, again, kind of like the Christian notion of a Trinity, where, say, you would have Zeus of the household, who is both an aspect of Zeus, he is part of Zeus, but he's also a separate entity. Roman religion does that a lot as well, but a lot more nebulously. I mean, Romans have deities for everything, and we don't even know whether some of them were actual deities that people worshipped or just a joke. Like there's a god of like doorknobs. Why would you worship a god of doorknobs? I don't know. But there is at least a name for the god of doorknobs.
I think it was early unionization. You know, these are the early unions.
Yeah.
we make cheese, therefore we have a god.
Yes.
We make doorknobs, therefore we have a god.
But thank you, Emma. I so appreciate that. I think
it was brilliant, Emma.
That's okay.
It was fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's see. We are going to talk to Chris West next.
Hello, Chris.
How are you?
I'm actually very well indeed, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm glad to hear it. Where are you? It looks sunny.
It is sunny. I'm just outside of Nashville. So
brilliant.
So I'm close enough that I actually work in Nashville, but far enough that I can keep a flock of chickens and ducks and a goose.
Oh, a whole flock of chickens and ducks. And do you do it for eggs? Do you give the community eggs? Sell eggs?
I used to before COVID, but I used to sell it at my church, and our church is closed. It's all virtual.
Oh, and how's life in Tennessee? How's life basically around your state? Because you must have seen things change over the last few months.
Things have been kind of crazy. I work as a tutor for a child during the distance learning. So it was kind of crazy because the schools shut, and then they had summer vacation, and then they opened digitally, and then some of the special needs kids went back in person, and then they stopped and they also went back online. So I have a job whenever they're distance learning. It's actually the best job in existence that I know of.
And it's a one-on-one job. It sounds like it's just a one person, because that's
I started out as more of a babysitter and chauffeur. I took the child and his brother to different activities after school that they had, and met the bus and babysat for them. And now I'm working with the one who needs help with the academics.
This child is a special needs child. Is that?
Yes, he's autistic. And my son and I are both on the spectrum as well. So it really works well for us. My son, who was here at the Halloween party, he was the young Jem'Hadar. He's almost 14 now. So he stays home with the dogs, and he has 2 pet rats. So he stays home with the animals when I work with the boys, because it's just a half day. And then he has his homeschool in the afternoon.
I lived very briefly with Nana back in the day, in just the late 90s in New York State. We had a little farm up there, which was actually ostensibly for her parents, but we kind of got the place. I went and helped build a deck and, get the place shipshape for them to arrive. I think her dad wanted 2 mules, so we got a couple of mules and just got them used to the place. But we also got a little flock of geese, and they were all tiny little toddlers when we got them. They're about 6 or 7, and I remember a day when they would follow us everywhere. As soon as we went outside, they would just follow us. They just completely fell in line behind us. And Nana was driving off, and the geese were behind me, and I was trying to say something to Nana, and I was jogging and running a bit faster and faster and faster. And all the geese were running behind me faster and faster and faster. And then 2 of them just took off. And it was the first time they flew. It was quite an amazing experience to be around geese that flying around your head for the first time.
That's funny.
Moving.
Don't really fly. Our goose will fly over. We have a little opening for their coop, because we keep them in at night, and it's a literal door just on its side to kind of block it, and she'll fly over that, and most of the ducks will just run around, and then the chickens will fly over. So it's just this chaotic scramble of birds to get out in the mornings.
And I'm sure it's wonderful for your youngster to have you around as well.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful. I wasn't a babysitter before he was 4 years old, is when I started. It allowed him the opportunity to meet some children. He's on the autism spectrum and doesn't really interact with children he doesn't know. But when he got to know these kids that I was sitting for several hours a week, then like this one family introduced him to Minecraft, and he realized, oh, it can be a lot of fun to play with other children, because we have on the game. And then the screen has to go off. So then it becomes live action Minecraft, when they're building with sheets and pillows. They're building these forts, and they're playing zombies, and they're playing the characters. He also loves Deep Space Nine, so we can do some of the homeschool with that. So he likes writing about the Jem'Hadar and discussing the show.
Oh my goodness! Has he ever come? He came in and said hello, or hasn't he yet?
Yeah, at the Halloween party, he
as the Jem'Hadar. That's right.
He introduced himself and said what his weapon was.
That's right.
A lot of times he'll be in character. So if we're talking about one of the episodes, then he'll talk about it from the perspective of a Jem'Hadar. May I ask a question?
Of course, you can ask anything you like. I don't have to ask.
I was wondering if there was any sort of book or a play that you would have liked for Dr. Bashir and Garrick to discuss at one of your lunches.
There are things I would have loved to discuss with I would have loved to discuss Plato with Garrick and Sophocles, and also the nature of hope and faith. And these are things that are kind of Platonic. And I would have been very interested to do that, because I did a project, and this kind of brought me back. I would like to do it with Andy, actually, frankly. But those are the sort of issues. I think those are the kind of meaty things that they would have liked to talk about.
Absolutely.
But I don't know if there'd have been I'm sure there's a dozen novels they would have talked about. But I think Garrick was more into, don't waste my time, Doctor, with Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. But is there something like that you find fascinating? You would like?
I don't have a specific one in mind. Basically, I just like watching the show and trying to notice what the references are, because there's so many in the Star Trek. Like even with the original movies, like Hamlet is mentioned and quoted, and the 6th movie, The Undiscovered Country, is from a quote from Hamlet. So yeah, I don't have a specific one in mind, but it's always interesting to find the references when they're there.
What interests you philosophically? I mean, I know you go to your church. That's obviously philosophically interesting. But what is it about? What is it that gets you right here? What is it that makes you go, that's what I wake up for?
Hard to say, but I suppose it would be something like how people interact with each other and with the earth, like how people decide on what is important to them, or what is a person's role regarding protecting the earth versus just fitting into what society expects.
That's a fascinating and fantastic viewpoint, because it's quite an unusual viewpoint in a Christian philosophical sense.
I'm not actually Christian, so I'm more interested in the pagan, like the interaction with the earth and.
Oh, okay.
So
there I go making presumptions about you say the word church and you're white. I immediately think you're Christian.
It is a common assumption. I was raised Christian, and my sister is actually a minister, so it definitely fits in the family.
What drew you to paganism?
I've always been interested in the environment, and that's probably in part because of my parents. They took us camping when I was little to the redwood forests, as I grew up in California. And there's just something so peaceful and relaxing about just being out in the forest when there's not a whole lot of other people. It's quiet. And then there's these huge trees. And then you look underneath and then you see these bright yellow 6-inch long banana slugs. I was an odd kid, but I had a lot of fun finding the bananas.
It's so humbling. I remember those forests and driving through. And my goodness, you realize who you are. Yes. You do know where you are.
And also just gardening. I'm a very novice gardener, but I've always been interested in it. So my dad grew boysenberries in my family's yard. And so now I've got fruit trees and raspberries. My son and I just put in some raspberries this year. So it's learning.
They're invasive. Raspberries will just go off anywhere they please.
Yes, and we've got wild raspberries too. So we've got wild black raspberries, and then we added some of the domestic, the orange ones and the red ones.
Oh, delicious.
I've been in Tennessee since 2005, but I grew up in California where it was all with potting soil and it was not the natural clay. So it's a learning curve, figuring out what to do when.
It's a great learning curve, though. I mean, that's a beautiful hobby.
Yes, and my son shares the hobby to some extent. He prefers cutting out weeds because he loves using a machete. But he also likes reading seed catalogs, anything that's written about chili peppers. He loves reading about chili peppers and melons.
My brother had all these harebrained schemes. They're not harebrained, but we're going to sell chili. So I grew thousands of chilies or hundreds of chilies, and he made tons of chili sauce, and we just went, well, what do we do with it now?
Nice.
Well, it has been a pleasure to catch up with you. We'd love to see you and your son as well next time round, whenever. And he doesn't have to get Jem Hadari. He can just come as is and talk about chilies.
Thank you.
Leia. Oh, I like that pronunciation better.
Where are you there? Hi.
I am unfortunately in the Binghamton area.
What do you mean?
We had 41 inches of snow.
Oh my goodness, that puts our 16 inches to rest. How on earth are you surviving? I mean, it's incredible. Of course, I know you've got plows and things, but are you snowed in?
I'm pretty snowed in, but since I don't know how to drive to begin with, it doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not going anywhere.
How have you managed not driving?
I actually don't usually live in this area. I usually live in the Bronx, but I am currently.
That's no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm currently house sitting in a lovely house.
That looks lovely. I can't tell absolutely, but it looks kind of lovely. And look, and talk us through your hat, because there's a boater on your head that cannot be missed.
It's a Morris dancing hat.
It's gorgeous. It's really cool. I used to Morris dance.
Yay!
I did. I used to Morris dance when I was a child, and we used to go from pub to pub. We were called the Mushroom Men. They were our school Morris dancing group, and that was because we had an English teacher called Mr. Shepherd who liked Morris dancing, and he said, well, I'll start a group. And I think we were the only school Morris dancing outfit for hundreds of miles. But we went to all the pubs, and I remember very well the dances, and we wore ribbles, I can't remember what they're called, had our sticks, bells on our ankles and socks to our knees. And I've got photos somewhere, I'll show you.
Oh, I would love to see the photos, honestly.
How did you find Morris dancing?
It's actually a weird story. My family had a house in southern Vermont, and I assumed that everybody went to go see Morris dancers on Memorial Day weekend. I thought this is what everybody did. It was close to 17 teams would Morris dance through Newfane, Vermont. And then I found out that there was a local team in the Binghamton area when I was living here, and I tracked them down and I joined them. And then when I had to move, I joined the team in Manhattan. And it's absolutely remarkable because I have friends around the world because of Morris dancers.
That's fantastic. And the tunes are so lovely. I mean, I still remember the tunes, and I still remember some of the moves for the tunes. What's the history of Morris dancing? Do you know it at all?
I don't know that much of the history. We do have somebody in our group at some point actually wrote a paper on the history of Morris dancing, which we have someplace. I do know that supposedly it's older than old and that Shakespeare thought it was ridiculous.
Yes, it's very old. I mean, it's ritualistic as well, and it probably has its roots in some sort of pagan dance. And I mean, I have no idea, but maybe someone else will know. But I look forward to it tremendously. And do you still dance? Do you still get to meet up? I mean, obviously not during COVID very much, or maybe you do.
Well, we do actually. We have practice every Wednesday. We try to practice things we know can be done on screen easier, like the jigs for a single person, or just to do the basic moves. We also have our pub time. We all filmed and then edited together dances to share with each other for a virtual Morris Ale on Memorial Day weekend when we would have normally had our South Vermont Ale.
Can you get permission from your group to show us like just 2 minutes of one of these dances one day?
Well, actually, I mean, if I had thought about it, I could have sent Mel a link because we do post our dances on YouTube. They are available to look at.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
And
people don't know what Morris dancing is. It just is that some kind of what's that?
I know, it's like, what are these crazy people doing? What is wrong with you?
Yeah, brilliant, Leah. You're genius. That's fantastic. And what? So that's the thing that makes you happy. Like that's your community, and that's one of the things that you love. All right. And do you cook yourself?
I cook like crazy. I cook anything and everything.
Oh, fantastic. Person after my own heart. And what's your thing at the moment that you're really excited about cooking? Is there
the other day I made clotted cream.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It's actually really easy.
It is?
Yes.
What are you going to do? How do you make it in a nutshell?
You have to have pasteurized heavy cream, not ultra pasteurized. Ultra pasteurized won't clot.
Right.
Pasteurized heavy cream into a rice cooker, left on the warm setting for 10 hours. Then you let it cool off. You put it in the fridge and let it cool off for 8 hours. And then you just scoop the clotted part off the top. That's it. It's clotted cream.
Wow. And have you had the British thing of clotted cream and jam on scones?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the great flavor explosions in the world. It's absolutely delicious. Have you been to the UK?
I have. I've been to London, and I went to Ireland as well.
It is pretty beautiful, Ireland, isn't it? It's one of the great beauties. The country is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's just
gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting a sunburn in Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
I had almost no cloudy days when I visited Ireland.
Wow. Okay. Right. Do you like raw fish? Do you like sushi?
I like raw fish. And if anybody knows what this is, I like natto. And even my Japanese friends look at me like I'm nuts.
They think you have to be natto to eat it.
I know some of my Japanese friends hate natto. It was just, in their opinion, it was forced on them by their parents because it was healthy.
What is it? Some like 400-year-old congealed dead fish.
Natto is fermented soybeans. They're fermented until they're slimy on the outside, and then you're supposed to actually stir them to get the sliminess extra slimy. It's described as neba neba in Japanese.
Right.
And then you eat it.
I don't understand. I mean, I do understand. It's astonishing. I mean, a fish sauce, you couldn't. I would like to put it in pretty much anything. It's such a good thing. But to know how it's made, how we get to it, is just how they found out about that. I do not know, and how they found out about natto. Like, this is so off. The dog won't eat it. Oh, we'll cook with it.
It's like, oh, we left it alone. Oh no. You want to try it?
It sounds like some sort of Ferengi thing. Well, it's brilliant. Would you like to ask me anything? Is there anything that you've been like, well, no one ever, I've always been interested in wondering wondered what this was.
Okay, we did have a weird question from the Zoom on Tuesday night. On set, like, we know they clearly show people like entering and exiting what's supposed to be a bathroom. But what was in that room when somebody walked in there? Was it just like a storage closet, or did you walk off the set?
Where? Which set are we talking about?
I was thinking about, there was an episode with Lita, and she walks out of what we assume was a shower, but I'm like, what did she walk out of? What's behind that wall?
Well, to be honest, it's probably some sawdust and paint cans stocked up, and a few paintbrushes and a broom. That's the kind of thing. If you look around any corner on a Deep Space Nine set, you'll see all the stuff that keeps the Deep Space Nine set looking cool. Because every day someone sort of wheels a huge thing through a set and scrapes along the wall, and it's like, we need to repaint this set, this piece of set, and they're there repainting it that dark grey color. And then other guys come out with hair dryers to quickly dry it so we can carry on filming. It's amazing how quickly they have to do all that stuff. It's like, why isn't it dry? It's paint. Dry it now. And so it's everything has to be done in a hurry by yesterday. But that's pretty much every film I've ever worked on. You know, there are people you get soaked with water. So a few people wheel in and take all your clothes off and dry them with hair dryers quickly and put them back on and make you look perfect again for the next take, which can't be more than 5 minutes later. Otherwise, you're wasting time for the director. It's amazing, yeah. And you need all these different sets of clothes, for example, if a scene where you get shot or you're very bloody, or your hair, you can be naked, but your hair is bloody or something like that. As soon as you finish, it doesn't matter how emotional you are, what you've just been through, how you're weeping, they're like whipping your clothes off, drying your hair, rinsing it, getting all the red dye out, putting some weird alcohol solution on your face, making sure you look normal, exactly the way you were 10 minutes before you did that little cut, so that you could do it. It's all very bizarre. And then you've got to try, with all this chaos going on, to remember where you are in your heart and your head, so that when they break the news that your father just died, you can sob again, or whatever it is you're supposed to do. It's really unromantic.
I actually think the worst thing to do is when you have to do a part over and over again, but you're expected to eat or drink. So you just keep doing the same bite or the same sip.
They warn you about that. We don't do that. And I never eat. It's like, I mean, it may go in my mouth, but it's not staying there long. You won't see the second where I'm like, some behind me. Behind everybody's chair is a pile of half masticated food. And someone comes along and just sweeps it all up, because we can't. I made the mistake once on Deep Space Nine of eating. They came up to me and said, we'd like you to eat something you like. And I went, I love kiwis. And the scene came along and I was eating a kiwi. I did not realize, even though I like kiwi, they're very acid. And after about 12 kiwi, I didn't know well enough to throw it out. My mouth just started to burn. It was just incredibly, it was being stripped. Those lessons you learn, they're practical lessons. No one warns you. The director doesn't want to warn you, because the director likes it if you're getting the real experience. unless of course it's alcohol, which they never disappointingly put any of the glasses when you're on set. Except once, the director was doing a steamy scene and had the really crazy idea of having me and the three of us actually, controversially, in the scene. And she asked us to drink a bottle of whiskey, which we duly did. And I couldn't stay awake. I just couldn't focus. I couldn't stay awake. I nearly fell out of the bed. I was in bed. It's like, right, this is where I sleep. Can we wake him up? Is there any chance we could wake him up? This is not what is in the script. Yeah, all the behind the scenes stuff is pretty unspecial. And it's the sausage factory is not glamorous at all. Well, thank you, Leo. I've got a feeling I thought more than you did, and I shouldn't. But thank you very much.
No, it's fascinating to hear about how it actually is doing all those takes.
Especially reminding me of Morris dancing. I'm really grateful.
Okay, I hope that Vanny has seen my message saying that she's up next.
Oh my God! Hi. How is everyone doing?
I don't know how everybody's doing, but I'm.
How are you doing?
How are you doing? I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm doing really well, and you look like you're doing well.
I'm actually in India, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning right now.
Oh my goodness!
But it's okay because I work US hours, so.
Okay, so you have to get up ready for wherever, LA or New York or somewhere.
New York, yeah, New York.
And what's that like? How do you have family life and live on a schedule like that?
Not easily. You know what it was? I was in New York, and then when the pandemic started, the first 5 months was really hard. And then I decided the first chance I could come to India to see my parents, I did.
Yeah, where are you? Where are they in India? I mean, where are you now?
Do you know? Well, I'm sure everyone knows Bombay, Mumbai. And
yeah, I know Mumbai, obviously.
Yeah, so that's on the coast, on the west coast, and my parents are about 3 hours driving inland from it. I just found out about you guys a few weeks ago, and I was like, what? This is happening? I love Star Trek, but I don't know about, like, if you ask me a story about something, I won't know. But I have watched everything.
You and I are similar.
And for whatever reason, I hadn't watched DS9 ever. And I was like, why not? Let me start. So when I was flying out in August, I downloaded season 1 and I started watching, and I was like completely taken by it. And I'm sure you've heard all this and everybody tells you this, but it is pretty
It's always
amazing.
different from everybody else's lips.
Yeah, I was telling my brother loves Star Trek too, and I said, it's amazing. I don't know why I didn't like Ferengis before, and I love them now. There's so much humor, and I was laughing and crying, and also all the stories. I can't even pick a favorite. I think every story was.
That's
Kira's story. I think the only part maybe I always got confused was like the alternate parallel world where everybody is suddenly mean and nasty, but.
I can understand you being confused because you can tune in and go, well, wait, which one am I? Except for the Kira character, the intendant, who is so brilliantly played by Nana that it's one of the great, for me, one of the great characters on TV of all time. I love what she did with that character.
She looked like she was enjoying that alternate character, It was great.
She couldn't wait to put on all that stuff.
Yeah, those outfits, and she's always lounging,
I think that appealed to the Broadway dancer in her.
Yeah, and I just finished DS9 a few weeks ago, and so I'm like, I now know all the stories. And a couple of weeks ago, when there was discussion about Dr. Bashir's character and Garak, and how somebody mentioned that, could they have been lovers and this and that, and I was like, wow, I totally missed that. But now that I think about it, I mean, you have lunch every Tuesday. Why would you not fall in love with someone?
More than most married people.
Yeah, exactly. You spend enough time with someone talking about really deep stuff, and you know, obviously I didn't like the Kardashians very much, but I like Gareth because, and he starts opening up more.
Yeah.
I'm not deep thinking this, but I haven't done any thesis on this.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But the beauty of it is actually most people are right. Whatever they take from the show is it belongs to them. So no one's going to decide that it isn't right. Although, you know, fans in forums will argue till the death about the correctitude of any one particular significant thing.
Wow.
What motivated your move to New York? Because that's quite a dramatic change.
Oh no, I went to the States to study. I studied architecture. I'm an architect.
Wow.
That's what I do. Yeah. And then I moved to New York, and I've been there since, I guess, 23 years now. So it's the place I've lived the longest.
And what is it, a culture shock then to go back home?
No, I come back often. My parents live here, so I visit, and I'm very Indian. I mean, there are parts of you that never change wherever you live. You know, you guys were talking about cooking, and I was thinking, oh, I love to cook. And if Sid asked me, what do you cook? I'd be like, well, I cook mainly Indian. I make pasta, and it's sort of Indian. It's Indian.
I love that. I just love that. But just shopping in India is a totally different experience to shopping in New York. Or
yeah, the bazaars and everything. Yeah.
Buying your spices, and everything is so cheap and bountiful and fresh and delicious smelling.
It is. In fact, it doesn't make sense. The tomatoes taste better. I was telling someone the cilantro, I say coriander, the cilantro tastes better. It has the smell, you just touch it and it just exudes the smell.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why the stuff in New York doesn't taste like that. Or
because it's been sitting on a warehouse floor for 4 months.
Yeah.
And I was in Morocco last year. And the same as the bazaars in India, you got mountains of spices, mountains of paprika and cumin. And I bought a gallon bag, a Ziploc of paprika. It was a gallon. I filled it in the supermarket in the place. It cost me just under $2. I put it in 3 other Ziploc bags and put it in my luggage, and all my luggage smelled like paprika and cumin when I got home.
Yes.
The smell is still good. I leave it in a dark place and it's still good now.
Yeah.
So we have good cumin and good coriander.
I remember I was visiting my high school a few years ago, and they've started all these farming programs to, it's a semi-arid area where I went to school. And so there's a lot of farmer education of what to plant, like don't plant rice, plant millet because it takes less water and that kind of stuff. And so they also have these small industries where people are selling turmeric and things that they make. So I bought some turmeric like from someone just on the street, wrapped up in newspaper, and I put it double Ziploc, brought it home. Everything smelled of turmeric. I was like, this plastic had nothing against the turmeric. It just
Do you know much about, have you been to a tea plantation in India?
I have, yeah.
Because I went to one when I was probably 18. I went for 3 weeks just around the south.
Nice.
And we spent, and it was a geography field trip ostensibly. So we went to a rubber plantation and we went to a tea plantation, and that was our geography done. And the rest of the time we just enjoyed being in India. It was an amazing thing. I was in this factory, and the lovely gentleman who owned the factory, I can't remember where it was. It was, I think, in the Kodai Canal, the high area near there. He was showing people sweeping up the floor. He was very proud of his big roasters roasting the tea. And of course, as all the leaves were going everywhere, there were these guys sweeping up the floor and I said, what this mountain of tea dust? And he was like, oh yes, this is for tea bags.
CTC, yeah.
That's what goes into tea bags. Because why spend money crunching up good tea when you've got all the stuff on the floor?
Yeah, the filings or whatever they call it.
They are, yeah, absolutely. I loved India. I'm not sure now what I think of it because I haven't been there for a little while. It's one of my kind of soul countries. I'm not an Indian. I've spent my life people thinking I am. Or, they always call me Indian or Pakistani because they have no other frame of reference for someone from my color. They just don't know.
Right. Yeah, I tell everybody, come to India, because I think there's this notion that it's too foreign, and it is foreign in a way. And when I try to, what's that?
That's the point. To introduce to something totally other.
Right. Yeah, I think it's worth a visit.
It's absolutely worth a visit.
I mean, I'm biased, but
no, I'm not, and I'd much rather people went to India than Sudan, where I come from, and it's a much more beautiful, interesting country. And if you get used to the cows walking the streets nonchalantly, and the traffic making incessant noise, and every time you stop, 100 children appearing from nowhere. Yeah. All of this stuff. It's a magical country. Hopefully we're convincing people just to go, because I was also at a place where I saw peacocks flying beneath me. We were in north of Delhi. There's an old palace which has been turned into a hotel. And you sit and have breakfast with monkeys who are trying to steal your breakfast. That's common in India. The monkeys are little terrorists. But the peacocks fly underneath you, and it's quite something to see a peacock fly with a tail that's sort of 8 feet long. It's quite wow. That's like seeing a unicorn.
I mean, it's just like if someone asked you, you know, put in a nutshell what the U.S. is. It's nearly impossible. If you're on the East Coast, you're going to get something. If you're in New York, Cincinnati, Tennessee, whatever, and the part that really is difficult to explain to people, because I still meet people who know nothing about the culture and stuff like that. You know, how do you explain this whole history? There's just too much.
Yeah. Also very beautiful in a strange way. And I'm a massive fan. I highly recommend anybody who gets a chance to go to India to go and experience it in the way that I would love to experience China, which is another culture I do not know and would desperately want to learn about.
And I think I always tell people, go to India with someone you know who's from India, and that helps a lot. I'm sure you can do it on your own, but there's just having someone there who can sort of guide you and sort of calm your fears, you know, the unknown,
and show you the authentic side and not the
how people live, and incredible.
Well, I know that vegetarians today know that South Indian cuisine is among the best in the world. You can actually totally subsist on it, and it's purely vegetarian. So it works.
Yeah. I was just reading an old book about sort of Indian food history, and it was shocking me. Indians have eaten everything under the sun. They said, we don't know about it. That I didn't even know about it. I always thought we were predominantly vegetarian. We're not. We literally have eaten everything, just like any other country has, any other people. So that was eye-opening for me.
Well, I love it that you've come on and shared a little bit of your life with us.
Yeah, what a great thing you're doing, by the way. Can I say thank you to you? Because I think, you know, COVID has been strange. Apart from the health part of it, it's just this sense of isolation and not being able to be with anyone. And that really was the toughest part for me, you know. Yes, I had my job and I had my health and I had a place, but friends lived so far away. We weren't taking any subways or anything.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, everybody here is so sweet. I've really enjoyed all the stories.
Well, we're all here for each other. So come by anytime and we'll get looked after.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you, Vanny. I seem to have some drama happening behind me. So
opening. Oh God! Oh my goodness! I think you should call the Santa police.
It's the war on Christmas. Oh my God!
That's brilliant.
Yes, we're on semester break here, so.
So you are.
Some energy to burn.
And they're back.
Elizabeth has given up. Okay.
Can you be assaulted and battered by wrapping paper?
I have been. Elizabeth surrenders, and now I'm under attack. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you. Wish me luck. Do you two want to come closer and say hi, or are you just going to
forward
the whole time? Hi.
Honor guard.
All right, that's Genevieve and that's Elizabeth.
Hi girls. Nice to meet ya. We'll be expecting much more of this next time when we all meet.
Yes.
Have a happy holiday.
I'm sure they will deliver too. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.